We're back on Wooden Sticks, recording today live from the Aquarius Home Services studio. We are midweek, and of course, now by the time this comes out, it's probably the weekend. Hope you're enjoying yours, and I hope this hockey conversation brings some levity to you. Excited today to have one of my coworkers on from the Minnesota Wild, and every single home game, if you've been to a game, you've seen her, you've heard her. She's Kirsten Krull. She works on the in-house side at the Xcel Energy Center. So every time there's a break, you're getting to hear from her. They do all kinds of fun, entertaining, tidbits with players, the this or that segment. You've seen all of it, Nordy and all that interaction. It makes the in-game experience that much more fun for the fans. So hopefully you know exactly what I'm talking about. She's worked in college hockey. She went to St. Cloud State. She's got her own podcast with Jesse Pierce called The Bar Down Beauties. I highly recommend that. And she's just a good human being, and I've enjoyed getting to know her the last few years. She's just she's a great kid. She's got a bright future, and just a sweetheart. So looking forward to the conversation today. We share the love of football, the love of the Minnesota Wild, the love of dogs, and the love of Taylor Swift. And I can't wait to get her thoughts on the big movie, the Eras Tour, all that good stuff, because I've got 3 daughters, and I'm going back. Let's see. My youngest turns 20 this weekend, Annika. She goes to Eau Claire, and she was probably 5 or 6. So I'm going back probably 14, 15 years when Taylor Swift was coming in concert in St. Paul at the X, and the 3 girls were just begging to go. So we took them. And for me, it was life-changing because I knew who Taylor Swift was. She wasn't as big a deal then as she is now, but I mean, her music was good. It was fine. I follow pop music, but I wasn't into it like they were. And that concert was just unbelievable. So I think Kirsten will have a good perspective on that. We can share some fun stories. And I just want to pick her brain on this hockey team. She's there every single game with us, living and dying through the ups and downs. Last season was tough, and I think it was tough for the fans. It was tough for the coaching staff. It was tough for the GM. It was tough for anybody involved. And when you're at the rink working on a nightly basis, that can carry over into all of the jobs around the rink, and certainly hers interacting with 18, 19,000 fans. That's got to be a challenge, and I want to hear about that because that's the good and the bad of working in pro sports, and just her love of sports and her love of hockey, where it came from. This is a show we try to go back to where it all began, and I want to hear her backstory on how she got involved, and if St. Cloud State was the choice for her because of the location, because of the broadcast department they have. They've got a great TV department up there, and they've produced a lot of talented people. I work with a bunch of them now at Bally Sports, so that'll be a fun angle to hear on her career, and then the interaction she's had with some of these Wild players. Like me, she gets to interview these folks and really get to know them at a different level, and whether it's a guy like Jake Middleton or Marcus Foligno, who's very bombastic, or some of the quieter guys, even Brock Faber, who's a little more subdued, but super, super interesting guy to get to know. And then, of course, the goalies, Fleury and Gustafson. We've got a lot to talk about today on Wooden Sticks with Kirsten Krull, and we'll touch a little bit about Bar Down Beauties and some of the experiences that job has brought her as well. So it should be a fun conversation, lighthearted, entertaining. I'm glad you've chosen us today for a little levity and entertainment, and really happy that John Schweitz, my dear friend, has chosen us, as he is one of our lead sponsors here on the show. And before I get to what he does, I want to get you involved too, and Karen Cleary can make that happen. She's in charge of everything that is sponsorships with all of us here at Talk North, specifically here on Wooden Sticks. It's Karen Cleary, K Cleary at talknorth.com. If you know somebody, if it's your business you'd like us to prop up, we're ready to do it. But back to John Schweitz. He's been a huge partner in this endeavor, and I want to thank him and the Freemasons, as they have been tremendous here as an ally on our show. And, when you hear Freemasons, you think of the secret handshakes and those goofy hats and the pancake breakfast, but really it's far deeper than that. Minnesota Masonic Charities is all about giving back to your community, whether it's the Masonic Cancer Center at the U of M, the Children's Hospital, of course, the Masonic Home in Bloomington. They are here at a time of need. And that's just a few examples of some of the work they do here in Minnesota. They're part of the largest fraternal organization in the entire world, and they consistently answer that call when it comes to charitable needs. I'm happy that John Schweitz and the Minnesota Masonic Charities has chosen Wooden Sticks to help spread the word here this summer. we look forward to many more conversations along the way with that endeavor. Up next, though, it's a conversation with Kirsten Krull from St. Cloud State through the Minnesota Wild. She's found a great career in hockey and in broadcasting, and we'll hear from her next. All right, we're back on Wooden Sticks. We come to you from the Aquarius Home Services Studio as promised. One of my very favorite human beings on the planet today, Kirsten Krull. You know her if you've been to the Xcel Energy Center. If you're a Wild fan, you know exactly what I'm talking about. She's the in-house guest there. She's a part of the Bar Down Beauties podcast with Jesse Pierce. She's everywhere in terms of hockey in Minnesota. Welcome to the show.
KG, thank you for having me on. You're too nice, and excited to be on here today. Excited to get back to hockey soon too, right around the corner. So exciting day today.
Well, how's summer been? I try to keep up with you on social media, and for us older guys, it's hard to keep up. I tell my daughters all the time that it's fun to catch up and to see what everybody's up to. But I want to talk specifically about a golf tournament recently that you were a part of with the Hobey Baker angle. And it looked like a heck of a lot of fun. And you got to meet Mr. Hobey Baker from last year, the number one pick in the draft, Celebrini. How did that whole thing go?
That was so much fun. The Hobey Baker golf event, we have it at the Royal Golf Club out in Stillwater every single summer. Great turnout, great people that were a part of it. And yes, the honoree, one of them, Don Lucia was the other one. He could unfortunately not be there in attendance in person for his award of Legend of College Hockey, but Macklin was there. We got to talk to him, and he was great. He was very poised, and I got the first chance to interview him at the award announcement in St. Paul during the Frozen Four. And just the growth from getting to talk to him just for that 2 minutes up until August, so 2 weeks ago now, you can just tell how much he's grown and just more experienced he is now, especially with the media. The big thing that did surprise me about Macklin, he has never been to a concert. So I found that super surprising.
That's weird. I mean, again, he's young. You forget these kids. I mean, he's a teenager, and I know that hockey's become, as you know, a year-round thing for these kids, and they get kind of myopic. And certainly, as he starts his pro career, he'll be, again, opened up to all kinds of different opportunities to go to concerts. Then he's still in college. Maybe it just hasn't been on his radar.
It doesn't sound like it has, but his favorite artist, he also mentioned, is Luke Combs. So I would not be surprised to find him at one of those shows whenever he can find a gap in his super busy schedule.
And I know that you probably had a chance to ask him if he's a fan of Taylor Swift. I hope to God he is. Us Swifties have to stick together.
I feel like I'm letting everybody down because that is actually something I did not ask him. Oh. And so now that you're sitting here bringing it up to me, I'm kind of kicking myself. I had more than enough opportunity to do so, and I failed on my part. So to everyone listening who is also curious to know, I'm sorry, because now that's going to bug me. So when San Jose comes to town next, you best believe that'll be the first question I ask him.
Well, I have to ask you because, we have a lot of common interests, specifically the Minnesota Wild, the game of hockey, but also we both love football. And the Travis Kelce, Taylor Swift connection, is this a real thing? Is this something, if you were betting money right now, if you're sitting here and you had to bet your hard-earned money one way or the other, is it going to be a forever thing, or is this just going to be a fad?
So I'm going to be very honest. At the beginning, when it was first announced, I thought it was a little bit more PR, just kind of a fun thing. Just seeing her at the game because of just everything surrounding Travis and the friendship bracelet, him making a public proclamation, like, come to a game, Taylor. Then she comes to a game. I was like, okay, interesting. I don't think this is real. But now, this far into it, any day he's had off from practice, if he's had any gap in his schedule, he has gone on a flight to go to Europe, whether it be for just one show, 2 shows, 1 or 2 days to go see her Eras tour. He's done that. I would put money on it, I think, based on just how deep into the fandom I am and all of the TikToks that come up in my feed about these two. And I do watch every single one. I would say they're already engaged.
I hope so. I hope it's a real thing. I got to tell you, my first exposure to Taylor Swift came, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago. my three daughters, obsessed with her, begging to go to the concert. So my gal Chrissy and I got tickets to go see Taylor at the Xcel Energy Center. And I liked her music. I was kind of non-committal on the whole thing, but because the three girls were insistent, we went and we sat in the lower bowl, and I was blown away. Like, listen, I've been going to concerts for almost 40 years now, and
Mhm.
she is the ultimate performer. I go back to when I was, in my 20s and Madonna was the thing. She knew how to play to a crowd. She had the costume changes, she had the talent, she had the music. Taylor's at a different level because she writes her own music and she's just a better overall singer than Madonna. But the performance, I was blown away. And so I became a fan instantly that night because my three girls dragged me to that concert. So I'll fast forward to last hockey season. The Wild open up their first road trips in Toronto. So this is October. And
Mhm.
the Eras Tour movie comes out, and I'm a movieaholic. And so I'm
Mhm.
talking to Sarah McClellan, beat writer for the Star Tribune, about this movie concert. It's over 3 hours, and we're trying to get tickets. And so we're texting back and forth after I land because she's already up in Toronto. And I find a theater, but the theater only has one seat left. And I'm like, listen, I'll be a gentleman. If you want to go ahead. She's like, no, KG, you don't get as many nights off to go. You go. So I gobble up the last ticket. I show up at this movie theater on a Friday night in Toronto. Toronto is kind of like a mini New York, right? It's happening. It's a pretty hip city. I walk into the theater not knowing what I'm getting into. I'm by myself, right? In my 50s. I'm by myself on a Friday night at this movie theater. I walk in, they have a bar set up at the front of the movie theater, inside the actual movie theater, serving drinks, and then the movie starts. And I'm the only one sitting down. Like the entire theater like stands up, and I'm like, well, I might as well join. They're dancing, they're singing, and the part that killed me is after every song, they're clapping like she's right there. I'm like, listen, that's a movie screen. She's not actually in the theater. She can't hear you cheering. They didn't care, but I had a ball. It was 3 hours of just magnificent entertainment. And I'll never forget it because it was a Friday night, because that theater was filled with authentic young Taylor Swift fans. I was by far the oldest person in that theater, and I didn't care. I had a ball.
That is amazing. And I think that's just so cool too, because that was the biggest thing. I know Taylor Swift had said she wanted people to treat the movie like an actual concert because she was aware of the demand for the show and how not everyone was able to get tickets. So putting it in theaters was also a way to just make it as much of that concert like experience for all the people who couldn't get tickets to go. And I know this is your podcast, but question for you: did you get any friendship bracelets? Did you get the souvenir popcorn tin or cup? Did you get out of your seat and dance and clap?
I didn't do a lot of dancing. That would have been something. I did get the cup. And of course, the whole time my three girls were texting me about the experience. And I just told them, I'm like, I've never been to a movie theater and seen anything like this. Like, I lived through Prince's Purple Rain, and that was a really big deal. I saw it 4 or 5 times in the theater back in the late 80s, but this was a different experience. And it felt like you were actually at the show. I mean, it legitimately transported you to the best seat in the house for that concert, which was amazing. Like, I was blown away by her performing the length of time she did. And she is incredible at what she does. And I love her, like, because of my girls and because of the experiences I've had since they kind of forced me into that show, I don't know, 15 years ago. I'm a huge fan. I think she is spectacular. Then you hear the stories, Kirsten, of the $100,000 she gives all those truckers that deliver from show to show, all the stuff it takes to put that stage together and that whole performing area. The tips, that how generous she is with her money and how charitable she is, it just makes you love Taylor Swift that much more.
Absolutely. Not to mention, too, every city tour stop she's been in, all of the food that she donates to food shelves, too. So
Yes.
even when she was in Minneapolis, I forget the specific one, but donated a bunch of food, made big donations, very generous to the food shelves in every city she's been in.
All right, so this is Wooden Sticks, and we try to go back to where it all began. And we have guests on this show of all kinds of different ages. You're probably one of the younger ones, and that's cool. I want to go back to how it all started. Take us back to the 507 when you were growing up. What were you like as a kid, and what drew you to being such a big fan of sports?
Oh man, that's such a good question. I'm thinking early on this morning or afternoon now, I suppose that you can say now that we're recording. Me as a kid, I would say I've always had definitely a competitive spirit to me. So I've had that since I was young. And so just spending a lot of time outside with friends. I played volleyball growing up. I played for about 6 years. And so I was definitely much better at talking sports, covering sports than I was at playing. I've made a great locker room personality, but as far as my skill set, I was not going pro anytime soon. But I think what really drew me in, I was in fifth grade and I loved just sitting down with my dad watching sports. We didn't necessarily have a choice on the weekends on a Saturday because he'd be like, okay, we can do this later, but right now football's on and that is what we are watching. And so I would just, eventually I caved in. I would sit down, I would watch with him. And I was like, you know what? This is fun. I'm really enjoying this. So football was one of my first loves. And then I started that would transition from just Saturday college football into Sunday NFL football. And I don't remember what the initial inkling to this was, but I remember it just made my dad so mad anytime I would cheer for the Cowboys or just, anytime they were playing, I'd get excited about them. So that kind of got me even more interested in the game. And I was in seventh grade and I had a friend make a recommendation to me. She's like, hey, I know you love football. Erin Andrews, she's a huge personality. That was when she was still on College Game Day back then. And my friend was like, what if you thought about doing her job someday? And I was like, I don't know about that. Because at that time, I still had dreams that like, oh, volleyball, that's my big thing right now. I can get really good at it. That was never going to happen for me. I play beer league volleyball right now, and that is basically where my talents have taken me there. But I thought about it more, and from that day in seventh grade, I never looked back and decided I was going to go into sports broadcasting. And then as far as hockey goes, it wasn't until my junior year of high school that I really got into the game because that's when I decided I was going to go to St. Cloud State. And that is the sport there in St. Cloud. I covered some football, baseball while I was there too, but hockey was it. And I did not come from a hockey family. It was not a sport my family watched. I would, however, go to some youth games with one of my friends who played. So I had an earlier introduction to the game. But that junior year, when I decided, I had told myself, I need to learn this game as much as I can because I don't know anything. So I sat down, I watched the Stanley Cup playoffs that year. It was the Nashville Predators who made a deep run the year that I was watching, or they just were in the playoffs. And so that was like, that's the team I'm going to be sitting down watching right now. And I did, learned the game, taught it to myself, got to St. Cloud, became even more ingrained in it. And just seeing the atmosphere, all of the fans filling the Herb Brooks National Hockey Center, especially when you get teams such as North Dakota that would come to town. Atmosphere was electric. You just fell in love with the game there. So that's just kind of a little bit of how I got on that path.
Well, you mentioned you picked St. Cloud State, and I got to tell you, I've been with Bally Sports, which used to be Fox Sports North, for almost 20 years, and I can't tell you how many people on all sides of the camera started at St. Cloud State in that TV department. They are world renowned for what they do. In fact, Matt Gangle at the top of that list, one of our top directors, is now the lead director for the World Series. Any national game you see baseball side on Fox, he is the director. He's incredible. St. Cloud State guy. There's a guy in Chicago, Chris Withers, who runs the White Sox broadcast, top and bottom, St. Cloud State guy. All over the place. Our company is littered with people that came out of that department. So how much did you know when you were looking at St. Cloud State that they had that reputation and had that TV station right there covering Huskies athletics to kind of propel you to the field you're now in now?
That was one of the things that drew me to it. So when I was, again, going back to junior year in high school, that's when I really started looking at colleges. I knew I wanted to go for sports broadcasting. So it was more a Google search that had me get accustomed with what St. Cloud offered. I think I searched the top journalism schools in the country, stumbled upon St. Cloud State because before I was looking at schools in the SEC, because we mentioned that love for football, I thought it'd be cool to go to Georgia or Ole Miss. Those are some of the schools I was looking at. And then St. Cloud was on my radar. Well, one day there was some counselors coming to give a presentation to students interested in attending the university. So I decided I was going to go to that presentation because, yes, it was on my radar, but also it was a get out of free pass to get out of class for that hour. And so I took full advantage of it. And as I was sitting in this presentation, the admissions counselor who was there started talking about their journalism program. Well, my ears immediately perked up because I'm like, hey, this is what I'm interested in, what I want to do. Then she specifically starts talking about sports broadcasting and then the hockey team and how they, if you were a part of Husky Productions, they worked with the Fox Sports North broadcast with select games to get featured on their network. I remember seeing a picture of Taylor Budge, who now covers North Dakota on Midco as one of their hosts. She was interviewing a former St. Cloud State captain, Nick Oliver, in this one pamphlet picture. And it was also one of those Fox Sports North games that they had been mentioning. And I just got this overwhelming feeling. I was like, this is it. I don't need to look at any more schools. I'm going to St. Cloud. And I had got the score I needed to on my ACT, fast forward to get in. I was like, okay, cool. I'm done. I'm going to apply. Got accepted. And that was it for me.
We got Katie Storm, we got Alexis Pearson, Taylor Budge, you. Like it's just amazing to me the amount of talent that's come through St. Cloud State. And I look at working college hockey, and I was lucky enough, Kirsten, to work back in the WCHA when it was all those in-state rivals, right? When it was the old WCHA and St. Cloud, Mankato, Minnesota, Bemidji. These were Friday and Saturday night appointment games. Every Friday and Saturday in the winter, those games were on. And I got to tell you, you're right about the dog pound, about the arena, the atmosphere there. When you get a big crowd at St. Cloud State, that building is so much fun to work in. So I can only imagine, like as a student, you're always trying to validate what your career goals are. Like I went into teaching and coaching at St. Thomas back in the day, and I minored in sports broadcasting, but you're always trying to validate the path you're on. That could only have helped, I think, make you feel like this was the right decision.
Oh, 1,000%. And when I look back on my time at St. Cloud, I could not be more grateful for the experience I was able to get. I got experience getting my hands on a camera and going and covering high school football the Friday, even before welcome weekend, because I came up just as a wide eyed, starry eyed 18-year-old. I made a connection with, again, referencing Taylor Budge. She was one of the very first people I met on campus, even when I was still in high school. When I came up for a school visit, we exchanged numbers. She got me involved right from the get-go. So I look back to even before I was in officially starting the school year, freshman year, I was already getting experience at the TV station. And those reps just continued with all of the different opportunities they have. Not to mention all of the excellent people that you mentioned that I got to work with. Katie Storm, Taylor, you name it. You mentioned other people in the field that went to St. Cloud. We have heard all about them. We've been able to have some as guest speakers at that time. So I could not be more grateful, because I don't think I'd be in the position I am today, given the opportunities I have, without having gone to St. Cloud.
So let's segue to talk about the Minnesota Wild. You and I bump into each other every single game. Hopefully, it feels like it in the mess hall, and then we end up going in different directions. I'm fascinated with the idea of being on a microphone and trying to connect with 19,000 fans. I've been up on that stage a couple different times, specifically to do the Let's Play Hockey, and it's a little bit, for me, it's a little bit overwhelming. No matter what I've done in broadcasting, that's a whole different world. How how have you been able to get comfortable? Because I've watched you kind of evolve, and you're really really good at what you do. How did you get to the point where you can be comfortable connecting with that many people in a building? Because I find that to be a big challenge.
Yeah, well, thank you first off. It was not always like that, and it still has its challenges to this day, but I just think back to that very first game I did. I was still in college. They had me come up. It was kind of a live interview, if you will. So when I was interviewing for the job, I was a senior in college, and even the interview itself, it was a virtual interview. It was me on one end and 10 other people in a boardroom on the other end. And they said, hey, we want to move forward with you. The next opportunity is going to be you basically doing a live audition at a Wild game. And it was so overwhelming, but it was so much fun and just kind of that different kind of adrenaline. I was not good by any means, but I was good enough to get the job. I almost got ran over by Nordy during the t-shirt toss. So we've come a long way from that moment. um, I would say there's a few things that have helped me. Part of it, sometimes truly, I try to just look at the camera or look at my co-host Joe Sutton, otherwise his stage name too, Juice is what he goes by commonly. I
Great
look at
kid
him
too.
or I look at the camera. Sometimes when I'm speaking, depending what it is, I try to just focus everyone out in those moments, and really just kind of stay tuned. But also, I could not give enough credit to my co-host Juice because he has made me so much better. He's made me feel so much more comfortable. Anytime I have an idea of something I want to do or try, or like a joke I want to try to make into the microphone, I always say it to him first, and he's like, "You need to do that." He's like, "That's great. Like, go and just kind of getting that validation, the encouragement. He's made me so much better. So he's honestly been a huge factor in that too. And just also working with a crew in the production room, up in the control room, up in the press box, to even the camera operators, stage managers down there. Everyone is so great at helping set you up for success as well. So there's a lot of people to thank for that, but my co-host too is a huge, huge part of that.
Yeah, Juice is a sweetheart of a kid, and I always love connecting with you guys and bumping into you on game nights. And I got to tell you, it's so much more enjoyable to do all of our jobs when the team is winning. And certainly 2 years ago was fantastic. Last year was a bit of a struggle. All of us that worked around that building could feel it. How much do you pick up on that in a given night? Let's just take it game by day game when the team's playing well compared to when the team is having a tough night, because that's got to be even more of a challenge to get that crowd engaged when it's like 5-1 in the second period, which we had a couple of those clunkers last year and it sucked.
Yeah, and it really can be. And I think that's one aspect of the job people don't always think of or take into consideration. Like one of the things too, I can't even tell you the amount of times a goal would just have been scored and you got to go in seconds later during that TV break and get the crowd hyped up to do a t-shirt toss. Thankfully, it's a free item. People go crazy for free. So that alone kind of does the trick, but when you have to just quickly after a moment in the game that really has just taken all the energy out of the crowd. Unfortunately, we've had a couple of moments where one of our guys has gone down, gotten injured, and then that little TV timeout creeps back in shortly after. And then, yeah, you somehow got to try to be happy and peppy and get the crowd re engaged and excited. And at times it can be really, really hard.
It can. And last year there were so many circumstances that forced the team into that situation. The injuries at the top of that list, the coaching change. It just felt like a year where the Wild were playing uphill the entire way from day one all the way through. It was a struggle. I don't think that's going to be the case this year. So I'm just going to ask you from a hockey fan's perspective, what excites you about the upcoming season for the Wild?
Ooh, and I will start this off saying last season when I gave my prediction, I was more pessimistic. I had said the Wild are going to be a wild card team at the best. Unfortunately, they didn't even get that wild card position, even though they fought until the very end for it. But this year, I'm feeling a lot more optimistic. I think that return to the playoffs they want to make, they will. I think it'll still be in a wild card spot, but I think they'll be able to make that push. And I think the thing that has me feeling most optimistic is having a fully healthy Wild squad heading into the year. You get your captain, Jared Spurgeon, back. I know he was always around the team still, but just having his leadership and presence on the ice, especially for a defense that struggled last season, that's going to be crucial. Help maybe even help take some of that workload off some of the defensemen. I mean, Brock Faber, he put in heavy minutes last year. He was, you can't say enough good things about the way he played last year, but comes to find out he was playing with broken ribs at the end.
Hmm.
You get healthy Felino in. I'm excited to see what this team's going to do. And especially too, going back to Spurgeon, just helping bolster that defense. They had their struggles last year. Hopefully that also helps out that net front presence to set our goalies up for a little more success. They also had some of their lows this past season, but Also, really hoping some of the additions and the prospects that we have, hoping Liam Ogren, we can see him up on the Wild roster, bolstering the offense, getting some more secondary scoring going. All of those things I think are very possible and have me excited. And if they're able to key in on some of those areas, definitely can see a return to the playoffs.
Okay, my next question is it's a two-parter. And part one is just specifically on the ice, what they bring to the table. Part two would be you guys do a bunch of really cool interactive stuff where the guys have to pick out, Packers or Vikings, this or that, and it's super cool. And then of course you run a lot of their interviews and some of the things that are taped before and after the games, you bring their personalities out off the ice. So the second part is going to be a guy that you love to hear from off the ice. The first part of this is who's your very favorite player? Just if you're working a game and you're in that building and you're watching the game, who's your very, very favorite player to watch on the ice?
Ooh, I'm going to try to answer all of that. If I miss anything, please just remind me. But off that last question, my favorite player to just watch, Joel Eriksson. He is a true playmaker. When I see him out on the ice and what he does, it's fun. And he's also, I feel, one of the more consistent players on that offense. I mean, you obviously have your Kirill Kaprizovs, you have your Matt Boldy's, but even we've seen them go through some slumps. I think Joel Eriksson, especially too, when he's healthy and in, he's an irreplaceable component to that Wild's offense. And I love watching him play. I love watching him ruffle opposing players' feathers and just get under their skin in the way that only Joel Eriksson can do. So I would say he is definitely my favorite. I'm always focused in on and watching. Favorite person to hear from off the ice. I've really been loving hearing from Brock Faber as of this past season. I feel he always has very, not that other people don't, but he has very intelligent answers to what's being asked, but he also has a little bit of candidness to him as well, which
Mm-hmm.
is just a little more endearing because you don't always get that. But also, I love hearing from the Ryan Hartmans who keep it very real, or the Marcus Folignos. Are you never know what's going to come from that guy, and he's just fun too. So those are some of my favorites. And then as far as the on ice content too, yes, I love how we really kind of stepped that up this past season. And based on some of the things that I've heard heading into this year, there's some new things to get really excited about for Wild fans attending the games. But yes, those I think you're talking about those this or that's in the third period that
I
we
love
do
it.
where
I love it.
Vikings or Packers. Well, Declan Chisholm did not make any friends when he said Packers. Not did not read the room well on that one, but those are always so much fun because that's what the fans want. They want to get to know their favorite players more, and some of those more just very candid moments where it's not always so serious and always about hockey, just getting to show more personality and flavor to everything. So those are definitely so much fun to have in game.
When I'm really fond of your selection of Eck because I tell young hockey players when they're coming to a game for one of their first times, or I even tell some folks like that are in my circle of family or friends, like just watch when you're at the game, just watch Eck. Watch the punishment he takes, watch the trouble he stirs up, watch the way he's able to create offense by doing little simple things and paying a price. That guy is, as you mentioned it, you said it, the perfect word, irreplaceable. And when they lost him a couple years ago in the playoffs against Dallas, to me, that was the difference in that series. He's that valuable. Kirill Kaprizov is the best player on this team, but I will argue that Joel Eriksson might be the most valuable.
No, I could not agree with you more. Like, I mean, again, it's unfortunate whenever a player goes down for injury. When we lost Kirill for a little bit there, yes, we felt the impact of that loss, not having him in the lineup in the roster, because, like you said, he is that best player on the team. But in a way, that also gave the opportunity for other players to really step up. I remember when Kirill was injured, that's when Matt Boldy really turned on the Jets and got going. But I don't think the same thing can be said for whenever we've seen Eriksson get injured. You feel that loss and you see it. And so that's a lot harder to really just expect that next man up mentality to have that and see it executed.
So when you go to St. Cloud State, you circle certain games on the calendar because it's a team you can't stand. You mentioned North Dakota. I would imagine when Minnesota came to town, same type of feeling. As a Wild fan, which games on the calendar do you circle when that team's coming to town? Maybe it's a team you can't stand. For me, it's an obvious choice. I won't spoil it and jump on your touchdown call, but what team or teams do you disdain the most and love watching the Wild beat when you're working in that building?
The team I absolutely hate the most, no questions asked, the Dallas Stars. Anytime
Okay,
they
that's the right
come,
answer. Yes.
oh, no, like no questions asked. And if you were to talk about to my podcast co-host, she would have very other feelings. She's taken a fondness to Dallas.
She's
I do not
insane.
feel that same exact way. It's dramatic to say like it's kind of referencing that meme where it's like you're watching the demise of XYZ and then it's somebody in the corner saying, "This is what I was praying for." But like
Yes.
that's how I feel about Dallas. Like right now, yes, I'm not denying they have a good team. They're skilled. They have the capability to take it all the way. Do I want that to happen? Absolutely not. Am I the person standing in the corner waiting for them just to get past their peak and slowly have to work their way into a rebuild again? Absolutely.
Well, and I'll preface it with this. Like, I love Jake Ottinger, and my middle daughter Maddie went to Lakeville North at the same time that Jake went there, and I've known him for many years, and I've had a chance to interview him at a couple different circumstances where he has been above and beyond good to me. We did some stuff for Hockey Day last year. The kid is an unbelievable kid, and he's one of the best goalies on the planet. And I will always pull for him as an individual. But I'm going to tell you, on a given night, let's just say it's a Saturday night, and we're working in St. Paul. I am cheering for two teams, the Minnesota Wild and whoever is playing the Dallas Stars. And if Jake's listening to this, Jake, I apologize. This goes way back to before your time and before his time, back to when the North Stars left for Dallas. I haven't got over it. And you know what? I'm never going to get over it, and I'm okay with it.
Yep. Not a personal beef for Ottinger. Like you mentioned, I've heard nothing but great things about him. His talent, so evident. But unfortunately, he plays for Dallas.
Oh, yeah, and you mentioned your co-host, and we have to talk about Bar Down Beauties. We work under the same umbrella here at Talk North, and I've known Jesse for years, and we do battle, and it's kind of a brother and sister type of deal. And this Dallas thing irks me beyond belief. She is
Same.
the ultimate kiss of death. I beg her not to ever pick the Wild in a meaningful game because for whatever reason, her picks do not go well. You and I have talked about this. She has strict instructions that she wavered from last year. The results were obvious, and we missed the playoffs. We'll adjust accordingly. But how much fun do you have? Like, you guys seem to have great chemistry on that show.
It's so much fun. And Jessie, she's fantastic to work with. So I could not say enough great things about her as a person and also just getting to work with her as well. She makes me feel comfortable. She's very open to things that we discuss. And even when we are arguing, not even arguing, but just, intense sports discussion, her and I typically, I would say 60-40. So 60% of the time, differing views, especially when it comes to Dallas. I think the Dallas thing is the only thing I just cannot get past with her. But no, we try to keep it fun on the Bar Down Beauties podcast. That's one of the biggest things, one of the biggest goals, because it's sports and it's hockey, and hockey's supposed to be fun. And so just sometimes too, some of those candid, unfiltered conversations that we have, discussions on the show, those are some of my favorite moments and some of my favorite episodes. Besides when we've had you on too, KG.
We've had some fun, and take me out of the equation. Let's just talk about hockey players. And I'm not going to ask you to pick your favorite because then all the others will feel bad. But just pick one. Maybe pick one in the last year that a hockey player you guys had on the show that you thoroughly enjoyed. Doesn't have to be your favorite, just somebody that actually, because you'll know when a person's on with you if they're mailing it in, especially those guys because they get asked to do so many different things with the media. But maybe one that stands out as one of your favorite shows that people can go back and reference and maybe listen to.
Absolutely. And before I get to the last one that I'll bring up, there's three that immediately come to my mind.
Hmm.
First of which I think was a little more under the radar that people weren't expecting, myself included. I did not expect it to be as great of a conversation as it was when we had Jake Lucchini on this past season. He was fantastic. He was funny. And you talk about candid, he was all of the above. So I loved that episode and I was very pleasantly surprised. Like, I guess I went in not having expectations, but it was so much fun getting to know him and talk to him. And just, he's a player too that a lot of people don't know much about. So that was really cool. Another interview that we had earlier this past season, it was with Freddie Gaudreau, and he's definitely more of a quieter guy. But I think what we were able to pull out of that interview with him, we got to know a lot of facets about him that I don't think people really knew. Like, he talked about how he loves the outdoors. He would want to live in a van, travel the country if he wasn't playing hockey. So just again, really cool tidbits you're able to work out of these players and get to know them just outside of the game. And then that leads me to one for a man that needs absolutely no introduction and is honestly such a joy to be around. And the smile alone is infectious. Jake Middleton. And I'm going to leave it
Yes.
at that because that's enough said right there.
The best, right? I mean, just
Mhm.
you dream of guests like Mids. He's got that big old smile.
Yup.
He speaks from the heart. He connects right away. One of my very favorites. And it's funny because you mentioned Freddie Gaudreau, one of the most soft-spoken, down-to-earth, sweetest human beings I've ever encountered in the game. He reminds me a little bit of Darby Hendrickson, who now will be coaching in Nashville. That the last thing they want to do is talk about something they've done. They want to point all of the attention to somebody else. That, and I remember a couple conversations last year we had with Freddie about Marc Andre Fleury and just how much he adores the
Mhm.
flower and respects what that guy brings to the locker room, to the team, and more importantly to the game of hockey. Freddie is from the heart, just a genuine sweetheart of a guy.
No, I loved getting to know him because, like you said, very soft spoken. He's a guy that can typically fly a little more under the radar. So if you're able just to have a genuine conversation with him, I mean, he is awesome.
Okay, Stanley Cup. We had I think from a hockey perspective, a good I think attention grabber. We're always in the world of hockey trying to fight to get the people over from football, from baseball, from basketball. The average sports fan that doesn't know as much about our game to navigate towards a game we love so much. You had the Florida Panthers, one of the favorites, really funny coach, great for a quote in Paul Maurice. I think enough superstars, the Kachuk angle, the Bob angle in goal, and then you've got the face of the league. I'll admit it, as a longtime Sidney Crosby fan, he's been the best player in the world for many, many years, but that torch has been passed to Connor McDavid. He is the best. He is the face now of this league. And you see a Stanley Cup, Kirsten, that starts out like it's going to be a snoozer, a sweep, and it's over. It ends up being an epic 7-game series where there's all kinds of drama. What did you love about it?
I mean, that right there, you just basically hit the nail on the head there. We thought it was done early on.
Yeah.
We thought it was done, but then Edmonton comes back with a surge and forces that game seven. And game seven, even the analysts said it themselves. It could have gone either way. Florida went from being the front runner to seeing no, Edmonton still has life in them and they are not letting this go. And it just, yeah, the drama of it. You talk about the best player in the National Hockey League, never won a Stanley Cup, on the cusp of getting one. Unfortunately, doesn't happen for him this season. There was just, and then you have a franchise too that was looking to get their Stanley Cup. It had everything, and it was so much fun to watch. And personally, for me, Edmonton, I was really pulling for them. I wanted to see McDavid get that cup.
Me too. I think he will at some point. I really do. But yeah, I was hoping they were going to pull it out. And for Florida, I get it. Like they have of the two teams down there, they have really struggled with their fan base and with getting attendance. Tampa draws big crowds every night. It's a different building. It's a different feel. It's only a couple hours away, but it completely felt different from what the Panthers had. This will really reinvigorate that market. It already has in the last couple of years, and it's going to be good for the game. But McDavid winning the cup, I think, would have been great for everybody involved. I got nothing but love for that guy. He's one of those players that when I'm working a game on the sidelines and I'm able to watch him up close, whether it's warmups or the actual game, I'm mesmerized by what that guy can do. So I think he'll get his at some point. I think our guy, I think Kirill Kaprizov is one of those superstars that's going to have an opportunity. And I guess we'll close our wild conversation with this. Can you imagine our jobs during a Stanley Cup run, a legitimate run, double K to a Stanley Cup. Like you could be standing in that arena with the towels waving. Like this team, I think in the next 3 or 4 years, legitimately can make that run. How much fun would that be for you?
I It would just be so surreal. Like trying to picture it right now, it would be a once in a lifetime experience, I feel. And I don't know, it's hard to put into words to try to imagine, but it would be so much fun, and I truly hope that I'm fortunate enough to get to be a part of that. Even when I got to work my first Stanley Cup playoffs, just heading into the first round, that was so cool and one of the highlights of my career so far. And so, yeah, getting to do a Stanley Cup, that would be an absolute dream.
All right, you mentioned you love football. I love football. Fantasy football is one of my very favorite activities in the world, and we're just on the cusp of all kinds of drafts here in the next few weeks. Do you play fantasy football, or do you just have a team that you root for?
I have played fantasy football. I took a break last year, but the year before, I was commissioner of a fantasy football league. I had absolutely no idea what I was doing. Somehow I ended up with the first overall pick in the draft, which caused a lot of controversy. Everyone
Of
thought
course.
it was rigged. And then everyone the rest of that season just wanted to make fun of me about that. Truthfully, I did not know what I was doing running the league. So I would love to do fantasy football again this year, but I opt out of being commissioner.
I don't blame you. Who's your team? Is it the Vikings? I don't want to assume anything, but I was going to guess it was Minnesota.
I claim the Vikings. I do claim them as my team. Right now, it's kind of hard to really embrace that, knowing JJ McCarthy has underwent knee surgery. So that's a little bit of
Mm.
a blow early on this season. Hopefully, fast recovery for him. Because man, how much fun would it be just to see him really light it up for the Vikings in his rookie season? That's wishful thinking. Hopefully, we'll still get to see him. But so yes, I do claim the Vikings, but I mentioned the Dallas Cowboys earlier this episode, which I know people have heavy feelings about that, but it's not the Packers. So I also do like the Cowboys just because of it used to anger my dad a lot that I would cheer for them.
I know there's a contract dispute, but the little success I had, and I played in like, I don't know, 10 different fantasy leagues last year. A lot of these are the guillotine leagues that Paul Charchian puts out, where once you're the last place team, your team's gone, your season's over. I won a couple, and the two that I won specifically, I had like the eighth or ninth pick in the first round. And in both leagues, I picked CD Lamb, your guy for the
Ooh.
Dallas Cowboys. He was a league separator last year. I think he ended up with 14 touchdowns. The guy was unbelievable. And listen, our guy, JJ, the other JJ, Justin Jefferson, was going first or second in these drafts. And because of injury, I think he ended up with 6, maybe 7 touchdowns. So if you were picking 1 or 2 and you went with Jefferson, it was a huge advantage to guys like me in that 8, 9, 10 range I was all in on CD Lamb. I love the guy and he's a tremendous talent. So if you're going to get back involved in fantasy, not being the commissioner, just being a player, and you love the Cowboys, that is the guy you have to find a way to get. Now, he won't be available this year at 8 or 9. You're probably going to have to pick in the top 5 to get him. He is worth the pick. The kid is electric.
Oh, so much fun to watch. And yes, you mentioned the contract disputes. Hopefully that gets settled sooner than later. But yeah, I'm just excited. You mentioned CD Lamb. Is there another player for football season you are looking forward to watching?
Well, I'm a Bronco fan, and right now I'm in a real bad place. I'm in a dark place with my team because I've been a Bronco fan for, well, geez, over 50 years. I started when I was 6, and I collected beer and pop cans as a kid. And Orange Crush Pop came out with a Denver Bronco can that I was obsessed with. And back then, we'd go to these flea markets and buy sports cards and beer cans and pop cans. And the Broncos became my team. I love it. It's been a great run. We've had Super Bowls. We've had John Elway. We've had Terrell Davis, the Mile High Salute. I can't stand Sean Payton. He's a bad human, and
Oof.
I'm gonna lay it out there. I can't stand our head coach, and so we're in a dark place right now. The Russell Wilson thing was a disaster. I
Yeah.
still love my Broncos, but I want this coach specifically to fail and be jettisoned, and then I can really get back all in on my team. So I don't have a player on that team. I mentioned my love for CD Lamb, And then I'm a huge fan of watching. I'm not a big fan of the Dolphins, but I love the players on the Dolphins team, and specifically a guy like Tyreek Hill, the A Chain kid in the backfield, the scat back. They are the most fun team to watch. They're the closest team to a video game team in the NFL. They play in warm weather. They throw the ball everywhere. They've got athletes. They've got speed up and down the field. So yeah, I'm looking forward to drafting and watching the Miami Dolphins.
There we go. I love it. I love that answer. I love the honesty on Sean Payton. I feel that's going to be
Oh,
a very popular answer among people here. Do you have faith in Bo Nix?
I think he's going to be a serviceable to good NFL quarterback. I have far more faith in the guy the Vikings took, and I know the knee injury, and right now we're in a bad place with that whole thing. You mentioned it. I loved the pick. The kid's 21. He's got all kinds of upside, and he's been nothing but a winner. Won a high school state championship, took Michigan to the playoffs every year he started, won a national championship with the Wolverines. If I could have one or the other, I pick JJ McCarthy every single time. But here we are right now, getting ready for this season. Bo Nix is 25. He's played at two big programs. He's played on big stages. He's got talent, and he does have a coach, even though he's a jackass of a coach. He is good with quarterbacks. So I think Bo Nix is going to have more immediate success, but it's not even close. I would rather have J.J. McCarthy. So the way the draft played out, Vikings fans, take a deep breath. This kid's going to be good for a long time. He wasn't going to play a lot this year. I think the only real kick in the pants this really offers for this team is the growing process. The learning curve is probably going to be slowed a little bit, where you would hoped maybe mid to late season they'd get him in a season that likely won't include playoff football. He'd probably get a handful of games. That probably gets moved to next year. And I'm still okay with it because I think the kid is an absolute winner, and I think the Vikings are going to have a ton of success with him as their quarterback long term.
Yeah, and I think that's a really great point too. There's still a lot for the future of Vikings fans to be excited for. But yeah, man, just to see his injury happen or come about after that very first preseason game, it was like, this is
Oh,
so Minnesota. This is the most
yes.
Minnesota thing to possibly happen.
I don't know what we ever did, but man, we are just getting punished time and time again. When the Wild make their run, which it's going to happen, when this kid gets healthy at quarterback, and when Ant finally gets the Wolves to the promised land, we're sitting on a pretty good run right now. We've got the right superstars in this sports market, and as Minnesota sports fans, we sometimes just have to be numb to the pain that has been there for most of all of our lives. Like, it's been a long time since before you were born that we've seen one of our men's teams get it done. The Twins in 91 is still the most recent championship with the four main sports on the men's side. The Lynx have been great. I acknowledge that is absolutely counting. But for a lot of people that are Vikings fans, it's been 60 years of heartbreak. And so we're due. We are so due for some nice things in this market. Now, speaking of nice things, at the end of each of the Wooden Stick show, we start the hat trick hot seat. I'm going to ask you three quick questions, and then we're going to send you on your way. So here we go. There's no wrong answer, Double K. So this is just top of the head. You can elaborate as long as you want. The first one I think is going to be right in your wheelhouse. If you can only listen to one song today on repeat as you go about the rest of your day, but you have to listen to one song on repeat. So maybe it's your favorite, I don't know, but the one Taylor Swift song that you're listening to today on repeat over and over and over again.
Everyone just knows me so well already. You included, KG, that it was going to be Taylor Swift. Um, I've been, to be very candid, feeling a little extra angst the last 2 days. So there's a song on her newest album, Tortured Poets Department. I actually did. It was the only song I listened to on repeat yesterday. And, it might be a little bit of the same today. It's called The Smallest Man Who Ever Lived.
Oh no.
So that is, oh, the bridge of that song is so good. You need to listen to it. And
I'm going to
please
check
tell me
out
your
that
thoughts.
song as soon as we get done. I
Yes,
actually got to
please.
take
And let me
the
know your thoughts on it. The bridge is so good.
Okay, I'm taking the dogs for a walk as soon as we get done. They've been really good boys. They're upstairs right now. They're not interrupting. So Fenway and Brooks and I are going to go for a walk, and I'm going to listen to the smallest man alive. Is that what it's called?
Smallest Man Who Ever Lived.
Okay, all right. I'm going to check it out. I top of the head, I would have gone with Teardrops on My Guitar, but that's just where I'm at right now
Oh
with the
no.
news of JJ McCarthy. But that's all right. We're going to move forward. So now I need a vacation spot that you've never been to, but it's on your bucket list. Maybe it's at the top of your bucket list for a place that absolutely you need to go vacation at some point.
Oh man, there's a handful of destinations I'm really wanting to go to. About 6 years ago, I took a 2 week summer study abroad in college, and I'm dying to go back. And I kind of hit the pinnacle right off my very first trip. It was my second flight ever, never been out of the country. Did this by myself on a trip, not knowing anyone who was on it with me. I went to Italy and Greece, spent two
Oh,
weeks there,
wow.
dying to go back. Both places were so beautiful. And for Rome being as huge of a city as it is, I was so impressed with how clean and well kept everything there is. So I'm dying to go back there. Couple places I've never been. Turks and Caicos, I feel would be so nice.
Yes.
Australia's up there. I'm dying to really spend more time out west, like do a full trip, Wyoming, Utah, Montana, Idaho. Those are big states, but also I've really been wanting to go to Oregon and Washington, more of the national parks out there. So those are probably going to happen sooner than me going overseas again. But there's a lot of places I still want to go.
I'm intrigued by Australia specifically after seeing the movie Anyone But You. I'm a romantic comedy. I'm a sucker for those type of movies, and that was filmed in Australia, and it was just beautiful.
We love Glenn Powell and we love a rom com.
Yeah, we do, and we love Sydney Sweeney too. So we're going to move
Respect on
forward from
Sydney
that.
Sweeney's name. She's fantastic.
All right, it leads to my next question because for me, this question would be easily answered. Um, it would be an actress. It would be I've never really gotten off the boat when it comes to Titanic. And so Rose and I would have to have dinner and we'd have to discuss things. I would have to go down that road. But if you could have a chance to meet, have a bite to eat, whatever, hang out with an actor or actress. For me, it's Kate Winslet, and it's not close. Who would the
Mhm.
actor or actress be to hang out with you, Double K?
Oh, this is a great question. Well, one of these would have been a no brainer, excuse me. But right now, with all of the controversy, I'm not sure if this is going to be a popular answer. And I myself
That's
will
okay.
admit, I don't know where to stand on this because there's been no transparency on the matter. But I would say it would be Blake Lively, hands down. But everything going on with the press surrounding it ends with us. I don't know what to believe right now.
Well, hold on, time out now. I'm again, we're in a whole different world as far as this stuff goes. I just went to the movie on Friday night.
Mhm.
Um, I loved it. I love her. What am I missing?
So basically, it's a lot of the PR surrounding um, the launch of the film.
Okay.
So the whole
Okay.
opening week of it when she was doing the press tour. So Justin Baldoni in 2019, he had bought the rights to It Ends With Us and had wanted to direct and was super passionate about the project. That was before the book really became mainstream. Again, I will say all of this, I really don't know what happened behind the scenes. This is just everything from the outsider's perspective and
Gotcha.
from what the rumor mill is circulating and everything. But it's a very serious movie surrounding a very serious topic of
Yep.
domestic violence. And it's not light, it's very heavy. And there's been two different ways it's been handled. So the whole press tour, Justin Baldoni has not been seen with the rest of the cast. But when he has been out getting interviewed, asked about the movie, he has shared resources and really has seemingly understood the plot, which is about domestic violence. Whereas Blake Lively, even some interviews that I've seen, she's kept it very, very light and kind of has diverted questions being asked. And a lot of the questions, too, where there's going to be people who want to come up to you and, share their experiences with you based on the movie and how they can relate. How will you respond? And she didn't even answer the question. She's like, well, do they want my home address? Do they want my social security number? Like,
Hmm.
so that's kind of how she's answering the questions. And she's using the whole press tour to promote her non alcoholic beverage line, her hair care products, She says, get dressed up with your girls, wear floral dresses to go see the movie. She's treating it like a rom com, and people
Ooh,
are
it's not a
very
rom
upset.
com. Yeah,
No, people are very upset with her handling of it. And from what I've seen, I am too. So that's why I say me saying Blake Lively is very controversial because, to be quite honest, I'm a little disappointed with the way she's handled it as well.
I can see that. Maybe it'd be a nice dinner where you can connect and maybe figure out from her perspective why she went this route, because you're right. It is disappointing. And I texted my three girls after I went to the movie on Friday and just said, "Hey, this is a heavy movie. It's hard to watch in places, but it's one you need to see." And they always they know, because I'm such a junkie when it comes to going to the theater. I love going to see movies in the theater, that I usually see movies before they do, and they always kind of use my, you know, reviews as kind of a guideline whether they should go see, whether for better or for worse. They trust my judgment, and I just said, "Hey, it's worth seeing, especially, being young ladies, like, you need to see this, but don't go in there thinking it's going to be all hunky dory, because it's not. It's hard to watch in places." But again, we talk movies on wooden sticks all the time, and I appreciate you bringing that up. And were you a fan of Titanic? I'm going to change gears back to my pick with Kate Winslet, or was that just a little bit too before your time?
I remember being very little and watching the movie,
Yeah.
and my initial take on it is very different than I think anyone was expecting. I remember having liked the majority of the movie. Like I said, I was very little when I watched it for the first time, and now it's something my family makes fun of me for. I think my dad's really the only one that really remembers. But it was more towards the end of the movie that was very traumatic for me, when the boat had sank and everyone is in the Atlantic, like frozen. Unfortunately, a lot of them were deceased. I was so scared of that scene. And so when I think of Titanic, I think of me being little and me being absolutely traumatized by that.
That's awesome. All right, so if the wild season, and we're going to close with this, and I've gone long. It's my poor clock management today, but I've had so much fun chatting with you. If the wild season isn't going to mimic the Titanic and sink like it did last year, who's the one player that has to have an absolute A game all season?
Ooh, this is a really good question. I'm just taking a sec to
Yeah, well, you got to think
thoughtfully
about it.
think of
It's a
this.
big call here on the Titanic. We need to get back up from the bottom of the ocean and get back into those playoffs. So there's a lot of different directions you can go here.
Yes, there absolutely is. I will preface it by saying I think there's a number of players on that team who really need
Yes.
to have much better years than they did last season. But I would say, arguably, the biggest, I think we need to see more of the Philip Gustafson we saw 2 years ago, not so much last season. He really took a step back from the year he had before, which was expected to a degree. But I think there was just a little bit more than we had expected. So just to hopefully see him come out of the gates stronger and have more of a consistent year would be great to see.
I think that's the right answer. I don't know. There's a lot of different directions you could have gone, but when I asked the question, all I could envision is him from 2 years ago being that rock star that he was. And he got the contract and he struggled for whatever reason. I think he'll bounce back. And I think if he does, this team is a playoff team. I can't thank you enough for the entire conversation. As I mentioned, and I'm sorry, listeners, I try to keep this to 45 minutes. I had too much fun today. I went long. I'm going to shorten up my intro and my close to make this work. But can't wait to see you at the rink. Can't wait to hang out again. You're one of the best parts of game day, and I really love what you do at the X for the Minnesota Wild. So looking forward to another season with you, Kirsten.
Likewise, thank you so much for a great convo today. I also had a lot of fun, and for just being a great person and having me on.
That's awesome stuff. Wooden Sticks will put a close on this show and give you a preview of what lies ahead here the rest of the summer after this short break. Okay, we went long, and that's okay. That's going to happen, especially when you have somebody that you're real comfortable talking with, and you can tell it was very easy to get to know and to hear some of those fun stories from Kirsten. And one thing that came out while we were conversing is one of the guys we talked about here on the show today is a football player, and it's a pretty important football player. He's J.J. McCarthy, and he is going to miss the entire season for the Minnesota Vikings. By the time you're listening to this, it's not going to be breaking news. I'll talk you off the ledge. He's 21. He was never going to be a difference maker this year. I do think long term, this is going to give him a chance to sit back, learn from Sam Darnold, learn from KOC, and have a year just to really soak in this system. And by next year, if he has another good camp and gets off to a good start in the preseason, he likely will be the starter, and the team will likely be more equipped to win. I don't think they're a playoff team this year. It's fun to talk a little football here on a hockey-centric show. And because it was breaking news this week, I bring it up now because during the conversation that I had with Double K, that news actually came out as a definitive answer to how long he will indeed miss, and it will be the entire season. For the Wild, touch wood, as my good friend Bruce Boudreau used to always say, but they're healthy right now, and we're getting ready for training camp, and we're going to have a lot of fun shows here in the coming weeks as we prepare for another season of Wild hockey. A lot of question marks coming into camp. Some of these young players, Kirsten talked about one of them that's on my radar in Liam Ogren. We got a little taste of what he can bring to the table last year, and I look back at specifically a night late in the year in San Jose where he might have been the best player on the ice. He looks and smells like an NHL top 6 forward, and that's exactly what this team needs. Can he take the next step this year and do it consistently? We'll find out. I love the way the draft went. We've had that conversation. I love that they're healthy. And I love that now we've got a training camp with lots of questions around the goaltending situation, around the blue line, who meshes where, how that lines up, and then how the lines are going to be put together. I think you're going to see a lot of different combinations from this coaching staff led by John Hines into training camp throughout the preseason. For all of us on Bally Sports North, we're going to broadcast 3 or 4 of those games. So we're going to get a chance to show you what that looks like. We do a lot of home games during the preseason. That's normally when you see most of the top-end talent play. So look forward to some of those shows. Bill Guerin is on my short list as somebody we need to have on here in the near future. I'm going to let him catch his breath here in August. But once we change the calendar to September, he absolutely will be one of the doors I bang on for Wooden Sticks. And there'll be many more guests into and around training camp as we get ready for another season of Wild hockey. Thank you again for listening. Look forward to some great shows coming up. And again, you can just head to talknorth.com for all that information. It's all on your favorite podcast platform. And again, thank you to Kirsten Krull, who does a little bit of everything in the world of broadcasting, and she brings a smile to everybody's face for Wild home games throughout the winter. She was fantastic today on the show. We'll talk to you next week right here on Wooden Sticks.